So I've done a tutorial before of showing how to do exposure bracketing in Lightroom, but this one is doing it in Photoshop. Right, greetings all, and today is another tutorial one. And before I actually get into it, I do really want to quickly just go over the differences between Lightroom and Photoshop when it comes down to auto exposure bracketing. So please bear with me. I'll try and keep this as quick and as simple as possible, and hopefully you'll understand what I mean. So when you use Lightroom, your camera, you'll take 3 images, which is the correct exposure, under and over. It merges them together. Now when I say merge, what it does is it looks for certain tones and stuff, and it alters all the sliders all itself to create the image. So basically it's creating a new image for it, and this is really good. But when you come to do further editing itself, this is where you start to notice that highlights, they start to change to how you don't want them to. And this is why Photoshop itself, because it does layers, is that when you put the two together, you're basically peeling away parts of one of the images to reveal the one behind, so that when you save it and then you load it into Lightroom, any editing that you're doing of highlights and all the rest of it are actually not going to affect the work that you've done to stitch the two together. Hope that makes sense. I'll try to keep that as simple as possible. Please, this is just my opinion. I prefer doing the auto exposure bracketing in Photoshop. Some people are going to disagree with me and say it's much easier to do it in Lightroom. I just prefer the outcome. So I have done a video on the other one. I'll leave a link somewhere for that one. And also the 2 images that the image that I'm actually going to use for today's, I took last week. It was only a couple of days ago for me, but it was last week probably for you, and I'll leave a link for that one as well. So let's not waffle on, and let's just get straight into this bit over here. Okay, so here we are. Now, we're on the desktop. The 2 images, which I'm just going to show you now, this one is exposed for the lower half of the image, which is obviously the groin and the sea. As you can see, nice exposure on those, plenty of detail, plenty of light, but the sky, you just look at it, it's just totally and utterly washed out. But if you go on to your next image, the exposure, it was for the sky, where you've got all the detail in the cloud, but the bottom half looks underexposed and is really dark. So you will fire up your Photoshop. Oh, they've actually already been converted into PNG, and the reason that convert them into PNG is because if you load directly from your camera's RAW file, then you're going to get this white border that's going to appear all the way around the image, because it's not going to have aligned properly. And this is what you got to. This is why you really need to follow these steps. So convert your images from its camera raw format into PNG or TIFF, but it's got to be a raw format because of further editing that you may need to do later on. So don't save it as PNG, because you're just going to have problems then trying to do editing. So please just follow the steps. So top left corner, you go into file, you will scroll all the way down to where it says scripts, and then down to where it says load files into stack. Really important step. So browse to where you've actually you've put your images. You'll select both of your images and hit OK. Now before you go any further, tick the box that says attempt to automatically align source images. And the reason being is because this is going to align the images perfectly together. If you just load them in to separate layers, they're not going to be aligned. So yes, you're not going to get the white border, but if there is any details of blending from the top to the bottom, they're not going to be aligned, and they're going to be out, and it's going to look a bit messy. Okay, now what we'll do is click OK, and Photoshop is going to do its work. And there we go. we have them loaded in. So your next step is it's basically leaving your lightest one on top and your darkest one on the bottom, because basically what we're going to do is that now that they are on top of each other, is we're going to peel away the top part of the image to reveal the darker one that's behind. Basically what it is. Now the reason I said to obviously before to get Photoshop to align them is you'll see that there is this little white bit that's going all the way around. The reason that this has become about is because obviously, even though your camera didn't move when you was taking the two different shots, is when you were changing your settings, it moved that very, very slight amount. So it doesn't matter how careful you are, you ain't going to get it perfect. So you just got to put up with it, and then obviously we'll just crop the image down slightly when we're finished, and it just will get rid of that little white border. Right, so if you select your top image, which is your lighter one of the two, and we're going to go down to this nice little box right down at the bottom corner, and it will add a layer mask. Okay, you should now see on the top image you've got this little white box. Make sure the little white box is selected, and then on your left hand side you have your gradient tool. Now this is going to peel away the image behind, but it's not going to just peel it away and stop. It's going to gradually ease out of when it peels back. So it's going to be a nice smooth transition between the top and the bottom. Where you want this to start and finish is totally depending on where you're going to drag your cursor down the image. And for me, it probably takes 2 or 3 times till I get it how I want it. So you'll just have a look around. We're probably going to go from about here, we're going to drag down to about there, and then we'll let go. And now you see that how it's very slowly blended in, but you've revealed the one that's behind. And if you got it wrong, it's Control Z on PC. I don't know what it is on the Mac. I'll try and have a look for it and try again and just try to get it to something how you actually quite like. I mean, I probably a bit too light, probably a bit further down. That's not quite straight. It's sort of. Oh, actually, I quite like that one. And that's pretty much it for this bit anyway. I'm not going to do any cropping on that in here. You can if you wanted to crop it in here. I don't. I'll always actually save this now, which we will do. And yeah, all that rubbish. So we're going to save it as PNG. You name it whatever you want. I'm just going to leave it as that for now. And hit save. It will save. There it does take a while because obviously it's got a lot of information, because it's not compressing it, it's still keeping all of the details that you need from the two, and it is there. So we'll close down that one, and then obviously then you would open that up into your into Lightroom, which I will quickly do now. This will take a little bit longer. And come on. And we're going to import. Tutorials, there it is. Untop PNG, that's that one. Import. Right, and there's the image that we've done. So that was what we've just done in Photoshop. You can actually finish off doing any editing that you want to do in Photoshop. It's like I say, I tend to switch between the two, and the reasons behind it is because I find one a lot easier to do than the other, and so on and so forth. But we're going to crop the image slightly, just ever so slightly, and that's got rid of the white border around the outside. Simple as that. And then now you can actually still do any edits that you actually wanted to do. I'm not going to go absolutely mad over it, but you know, it's one of the things I do tend to do as well, which I'm going to quickly say on here as well, is when you actually come to do your whites and your blacks, if you hold your Alt key and you move your slider, basically what this will do is show you where the pure whites are going to be. So that's going to be all of the whites, and you just want it just so you've got some whites, and you do exactly the same with the blacks. Drop it down till you get just some blacks, and it doesn't matter what photo I do, I always tend to do that, because you always want some white and some black in your images. And if you go a bit further down to where the sharpening is as well, if you press your Alt key again, and if you slide it all the way across, basically you don't want to sharpen the whole image. You just want to sharpen the outlines. So if you move your slider across till you've got just the outlines, and then you sharpen the outlines. Just sharpen the whole image, I'm sorry, it looks rubbish. So just sharpen the outline of it. Perfect. And I'm not going to actually do any more editing, because obviously this is more just about the Photoshop side of stitching them together. So yeah, real quick and simple, and it doesn't take actually that long to do. It may seem like a little bit of faffing around, as where in Lightroom you just combine them together and it does its stuff. I just tend to find that when you're doing further editing afterwards, it just makes it a little bit more tricky to try to keep the details and everything that you originally wanted in there, because obviously Lightroom itself has done all these tweaks and everything with all the sliders all over the place. Is there any adjustments that you make, and it just seems a bit, you go back to it. So yeah, I just prefer you actually using Photoshop for doing those images. I'm not actually too sure whether Photoshop Elements is the same sort of an interface. So if you've got a Photoshop Elements, have a look and see whether you can actually do this in that, and let me know, because I'd be really intrigued to know. But thanks for joining me on this one, guys. I hope you find it useful, and I don't know, also let me know as well whether you prefer Lightroom or Photoshop for doing your exposure blending, and which you prefer. And have you got a method that you use? Let me know. Until the next time, thanks for joining me on this one, guys, and don't forget, hit that subscribe button for us, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.